Good afternoon, Santa Clara City. I'm Raj Singh. I have a co-host Kritesh to follow along with me and Jaspreet Bajwa with us. We've been hosting political talk shows from Central Valley and all over the California. So today we get to connect with a person running for District 1 in Santa Clara County for a council member. So before I jump into that and bring our guest on, I would actually like Kritesh to introduce Jaspreet for our show. She would be hosting a show with us as a panelist. So Kritesh, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Raj. And I want to thank Jaspreet for her time to being with us to host this show. So Jaspreet is an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley since long and involved in multiple aspects around the community to uplift the community in different fields, different domains. So now I request Jaspreet also to please briefly share some more about her before we introduce our guest for today.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Sat Sri Akal, everybody, and we're really proud to have Sikh community come up to the surface and run for these seats. And again, my name is Jaspreet Mona Bajwa. I've been a Sikh immigrant for 25 plus years in the U.S. and I've been in the Silicon Valley as an entrepreneur, as a tech worker, and pretty much worked with a lot of Santa Clara companies as well as Silicon Valley, San Francisco companies. So I'm really looking forward to this program. Thank you.
Welcome, Harbir. Kritesh, please introduce our guest on the show.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Harbir, for joining us today. So Harbir is running for District 1 for Santa Clara City Council. So Harbir has an engineering background in computer. She has her own startup companies, and more than 30 years she is involved in the community organizations. So like she was a commissioner for the Cultural Commission in Santa Clara and nonprofit Joy for Seva. And she recently co-founded or founded a nonprofit organization which served in COVID, donated thousands of masks, face shields, created food pantries. So now I'll request Harbir to please share some more about her as well as her vision, why she is running for District 1 Santa Clara.
Well, thank you, everyone. Raji Khalsa, Raji Kaze Fateh, Sat Sri Akal to everyone as well. So, as you mentioned, thank you for the introduction. I actually, feel it's really important for our Sikh community to be involved. And I think my life has always been driven by that message of Sarvatapala for everyone. And that's also what I think is what differentiates our Sikh community often. And we're always there when we need to, when there's society issues and when there's a need for support. Now, a little bit about my background. Like you mentioned, I have been in engineering for most of my life, but it was electrical engineering. It's just that there was nothing for my role after I came to California, and I actually started out Lockheed Martin. So I joke about that when I talk about some other issues that, that those issues are not rocket science because I've actually worked on rockets. So these issues should not be that complicated for us. But I think what's most important is that, just like most people living in Silicon Valley, we have the opportunity to explore new ideas, new ways, and just like this week, my friends and I started our own startups. Some failed, but some of them really gave us the lessons that help us understand what it means to create outcomes. And I think that's the most important thing that we can all take away from these experiences. And I have been very involved in the nonprofits and local community organizations. I think that's probably what I work for, just so I can allow myself to, do all that stuff. So I keep my job, to be very honest, that I can't, like the kitsch to the community is just too strong for me. So I kind of decided, I need to give in to that pull. But I think for all the viewers, this is a very important message. That message is that many of us don't feel that we're meant to be in public service. And even though I'm not born here, I jokingly say I can't be president, but I can be governor. So it's for the message for our Sangat and our people that, don't think of it as, this is you have to be born here or you have to be here for multi-generations. I know when we came, just like Jaspreet mentioned, that I came here thinking just with my parents as a child that we're here to succeed. We're here to be effective in our jobs, in our education, to find stability. But from the sidelines. And that's probably the issue. I think we need people that are passionate about survival, about progress, about financial stability. And I think that's where we as a community really bring an interest in that, along with the fact that we happen to be coming from a faith of Sikhi that teaches us Chardikla, teaches us Sarbatapala, the oneness amongst all. And that's what's driven me finally to say, I got to give in to this pull I have. And maybe the problem is that I don't need to see people like me. What I need to do is give people reason to feel like we can be in council, we can be in policy-making positions. Because if we truly want to shape the future because we came here for that, then this is the way to do it.
Okay, thank you very much, Harbir, for the introduction. And I'll request Jaspreet to please lead us into the conversation further.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kotej. Thanks, Harbir, for such a great introduction. And I think I agree with a lot of your fundamental pillars as well as, philosophy. And we support that 100%. One of the big questions that, being in a tech world and being in Silicon Valley, Santa Clara is the hub of so-called Silicon Valley with companies like Apple, Google, and now with what's going on with the dynamics in the job market, with 200,000 unemployed cases reported in Santa Clara. My question is, you also talked about improving financial status, and you talk a lot about uplifting the economy in your messaging. I would really like to hear your thoughts about, is there a plan on diversifying the Santa Clara workforce and supporting these unemployment scenarios? And the subset of that question would be, how and what specific steps you would take, one for the workers and the companies, and the second question is the small businesses. Those are the ones quite suffering at this point. So, what are your specific steps and a plan in place if you take over?
So this is a really good question and a very, very long answer and very complex answer, because I don't want to ever appear that I'm some expert on knowing all the answers, but I can tell you that it's also plenty of common sense opportunities for us. So one thing is that we have to recognize that let's just say during COVID, as an example, as a starting point, we realize that disasters and issues don't take turns. They don't say, let me have one finish and then I'll come back, right? We saw the fire, we saw the BLM movement, we've seen the increase in joblessness, homelessness. All these things are now starting to affect each other. And so I look at it as, okay, what are the common problems in all of these cases that I can help solve? And how do they help solve the other problems, right? So during COVID, as it started, and I shouldn't say during COVID as if it's over, because it's not. At the start of it, for whatever reason, my instinct was that I have to help solve the problem. I kept hearing people complain that we don't have enough PPE, we don't have enough masks, we don't have enough face shields, blah, 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 blah. And it just, again, comes back to it, why are we waiting for somebody else to solve the problem? I don't know why that is. But I think that's also personality style. I just feel like you have to kind of go forward and jump into the problem versus kind of looking at it and keep waiting for somebody else to solve it. And so I did some research, and I found that there were tools and information online that I could do my own research to determine if we should go and build masks, for example. So I created the templates, I put the group together, and before I knew it, apparently the resources and the information I provided is what people were looking for. Then it started to just burst. And I then asked people, I need volunteers to help me put some kind of organizational structure into this, because I cannot manage this. And it cannot be about me, it has to be about the impact. So that's an example of whether it was a corporate experience or a nonprofit experience or problem solving, is that if we tactically look at the problem, but do not wait for somebody else. We can definitely find a lot of solutions. Now it comes to jobs. So again, I'm going to say this again and again. It's not rocket science. I did some research about face shields, and I asked one of my girlfriends from Rotary Club. She and I work together a lot. Her name is Deborah York. I said, look, I have an idea. Can you help me build this? Because she's hands-on and she has a lot of the materials at home. And I have business contacts being a chamber board member. So I contacted some small businesses that I knew, and then I contacted others through some other professional networks. We basically got the materials we needed. We took the prototype to Kaiser. The CEO is a friend of mine from the chamber. He liked it. He felt it was actually quite impressive in terms of the premium quality and the durability. And we addressed all these issues that we were hearing about, that we don't want to create throwaway products. So we actually launched a small enterprise, but it wasn't me. I actually went to another software/products company who has an innovation arm. And they volunteered with me in the past and are really good friends. So I asked them, would you be willing to take this fiscal responsibility of bringing on a workforce that is currently laid off to help build face shields, which will sell to Kaiser and other providers or whoever can purchase them. And then the money goes to pay for the employees. And then whatever's left over can be, to cover the cost of those face shields that can help the other clinics and senior, housing, the Navajo Nation, other places that do not have the money to do so. So we just created a small enterprise and made it sustainable or self-sustaining. And that's just an example of why, as a city, did my, city government not cooperate with Chamber of Commerce to figure out ways to solve problems? Because they were not in a willing, collaborative mindset. And what if we did that for all the mask making? Why couldn't Santa Clara become the hub, or some other city become the hub of mask making online, in local cities? That is a great entrepreneurial opportunity. Now people are coming up, they're making some, monies off that. But in our case, we got 500 volunteers together to use their own home tools, their own skills to build masks, sew them, cut them, whatever they have the skills for, and then others who picked them up and delivered them to those that could. That's just an example of how you can scale, right? When we all work together and build a process. And then the other thing with the shields, I found a venue that was within my city who was going to go under if they did not find some money or a revenue stream, because they're an indoor soccer field. Who's going to go play indoor soccer during COVID? So he let me convert it to an assembly, I won't call it assembly line, but let's just say an assembly space. And he and I know each other through Rotary Club as well, and the community and also Chamber. So I'm just showing you parts of how, if we're looking at how to use what we have, use the talents that we have, train with new ideas and new skills. And then we have the purchasing power within the country, within the region, and internationally. We can help sustain our families here. So we didn't move a mountain. I'm very aware of that. But we took care of these families who took care of their kids, who did not have to go homeless, who did not have to go without food on their plate. If we keep that mindset, we build more. Now, what are the opportunities for us now? Those opportunities are in climate. We actually did some tests ourselves and created glue out of foam. Who has extra foam they'd like to give up? Trust me, everybody in the house does. So if we explore the needs and the resources we have, how do we fill the gap by putting those together? So we have excess foam, which is the reason I started investigating what do I do with this piece of garbage? Literally, I don't want to keep filling landfills. So I researched online. I found a low chemical version of how to make glue out of foam. So I look for those kind of opportunities, and my goal is that we start looking at the opportunities we have today in front of us, which climate is one of the largest we have. New forms of running businesses and providing consulting services and helping small businesses learn new ways of being successful in a COVID environment, right? Using those things to help them prepare for a future. That's where the opportunities are. And that will mean a workforce. We have so many poor people who do not have jobs. We will need to retrain them. If we want to stop the cycle of homelessness, we want to stop the cycle of, poor economy, we need to think about what are the assets and resources we have, what are the things we're trying to solve, and now how do we leverage those to solve the problem. Manpower, we have it. Space, we have it. Brains, we have it. Resources, we have it. It's just a matter of choosing which industry and what problems we want to solve. And that's where collaboration is the key in that process.
That's great. Thank you. Just a subset question of that while I was listening to while you were talking. You know, it sounds like it's really a mindset shift and bringing in a lot more out of the box and innovation into day-to-day operations of this new, you know, new administration. And talking of that, like you talked a lot about retraining, but so the question I have is, can you talk a little bit about maybe the top two deficiencies in the current council administration that is there? What are the top two deficiencies or issues that you think that will absolutely add value instantly?
Okay, that's it's actually well connected to the previous question you asked me. The issues are we don't have innovation, literally. Okay. Number one. Number two, we have poor forecasting and budget planning. So our city's in a $34 million deficit. They're continuing to use overspend. And it sounds so boring, like who would want to talk about this? But when you realize how it affects your weekly your life and your quality of life, then it starts to relate. And right now we have a lot of lawsuits against and appeals against other initiatives, and one of them, which is I kind of told you about at the beginning, is called the Citizens Voting Rights Act violation. Our city was considered to be in violation of the voting rights, which prevented minorities from getting elected. And I want to be clear, this is not a question of race and taking this as an opportunity to try to take advantage of a situation, okay? I want to be very clear because people can misconstrue when we talk about this. This was a symptom of a problem. And they discovered after two families were willing to take the risk and step up, and with the Asian Law Alliance, they found that the system was set in such a way that would probably never allow minority or a grassroots leader or an independent voice from being elected. Now, we think we're in America, these problems don't exist. I can tell you firsthand in my election, my campaign, I have seen how it is so possible to abuse the power to help further one's own agenda. So the judge ruled 6 districts. 2018 proved that the districts can bring independent voices and more qualified candidates. So 2 candidates were elected. One is Raj Chahal, which I'm hoping you guys all heard of him because he's the first minority and first Sikh in 70 years to be elected, and the first Sikh actually overall. And then a grassroots leader, she's a teacher, her name is Karen Hardy. And this proved that the majority bloc cannot control the outcomes of the vote if we are in a district model. Now that doesn't mean it's a perfect model. I want to be very clear here. Some say it's actually called the ranked choice voting is the perfect model by district, but the fact that we have 1 independent voice per district is in itself proving this can change the whole scenario. So I believe at this point that people are being held back, our city is being held back, all because a set of majority voters have been controlling who becomes elected because they were the ones who helped choose which council members worked in their favor and ensured they got elected. But now that individual districts will choose those elected officials themselves, their power has been overridden. It actually has been removed. And this leads to another issue that we found. And I'm going to be, you're the first to hear it actually. So 49ers jumped into the game. 49ers have actually, for whatever reason, they're supporting the Citizens for Efficient Government, and it's called a Citizen for Efficient Government and Fair Rights organization, PAC. By doing so, I'm having to now defend myself that I have nothing to do with them. They've invested $1.4 million into 4 minority candidates who are running in 4 districts in my city. I am being now accused for all the great work we did in the last 5 months that I am in their pocket, and therefore people should not vote for me. So I started voicing my concerns on Nextdoor, and guess what? The leads on Nextdoor, who are friends of the incumbent, actually had me removed from Nextdoor. But not only did they suppress our voices in the city council, they removed me from Nextdoor to be able to continue to respond to the false allegations they're making about me to convince the voters to not vote for me. And we ran across an old lady yesterday on the road when we were canvassing. And I just thought I had introduced myself, and I always joke my name is Her Beer because that gets them to calm down, you know, and oh yeah, she's somebody I can talk to. She admitted at that point that she knew me and that she was planning to vote for my opponent because of what she saw next door. If I hadn't had a chance to talk to her, it would have gone the other way. So we hope that the people now are speaking up saying, why would you take this lady off the Nextdoor? Because this is their way of controlling the voice, as they did with 6 districts, which they're trying to undo with an appeal to the judge that this is not the best system for our city and they should go back to a different model. Even though publicly, because of the noise and feedback they're getting, they're trying to say it's okay, 6 districts, but we need to continue our appeal, otherwise we'll lose another $4 million, which they used already. Nextdoor is another example of what they did to suppress my voice, so people don't know the facts that we are in an economic crisis in my city, because I put the facts out there. So my first step is stop those lawsuits. Second step is start our economic engines. Third step is get people, working on new ideas and new jobs and new, careers, and put some money back into our city coffers, and get our visitors bureau back. Because if anybody knows about economics of our city, visitor bureaus bring in so much money, but our city cut them because they were afraid that they would show how they had more power to improve the economy than our council did. So guess what? They cut the visitors bureau 2 years ago.
Thank you, Herbie, for sharing all these insights, and we feel what's happening, and thank you for standing up for those issues. That's really admiring and encouragement for a lot of folks. So something around the same thing, the story that you shared, I would like to actually ask you, what's your take on Measure C? First of all, what is Measure C in Santa Clara City, and what's your take on it, which failed back in March, reducing council districts from having 6 bodies to 3. So what does that really mean?
So thankfully, I answered much of that for you, so I don't have to, repeat on this answer. So basically, what Measure C was, as I mentioned, in 2018, Raj and Karen won. So Measure C was to undo those 6 districts because the majority council was very afraid that they lost 2 seats. If they lost any more majority council seats in the next election, they would no longer own the majority block. So they put Measure C on the ballots this year in hopes to convince the public and confuse the public that 2 council members per district are better than 1 per district. Okay? Now, I can't say that every resident understood the difference very well because there's so much propaganda. At that time, I was actually in Pakistan with my parents doing some Sikh heritage tours. And when I heard about this, literally every day, myself and the other three minority candidates, so there's 4 of us, started pushing content out there. And at that point, we discovered the propaganda was to undo 6. So they put Measure C on the ballot. And in the average across the city, it lost somewhere between 60 to 65% to 35%. But in my district, where my council member is part of the majority block, it was 55 to 45. Because of the control that this council member has in this area to propagate the message, because of her relationship, being an incumbent, 2, being a lead on Nextdoor, number 3, having a strong support from the 49ers backdoor, we call it, because the 49ers is my district. using that platform of social mediums and ensuring that she had her own people seated in all these locations in advance, she was able to convince 45% to vote yes, which is higher than any part of the city. So now you can see why, if we don't get good council members in and we use tools that are, available to them, the abuse of power happens. And that's why it's so very critical that you have every district have an independent voice.
I'm so glad you're openly and boldly saying these things. It's very hard when you're running for a public office to say these things. So that's admiring. And on the same side, we're hitting our 25 minutes window. So I want to make sure we cover as much as we can for the voters so they would know who you are, what you are standing up for. And I think one of the other biggest topic for your district is around the Levi Stadium. Yeah. So can you highlight on that part? It's always in the conversation. It's always divisiveness in the community. There's some lawsuits happening and fights happening. What's your take on it? How can it be improved?
Sure. I'm impressed that you guys know so much about my district. You've done your homework. So simply, let me just tell you what happened. The Measure J was to bring the 49ers, and my incumbent, my opponent, actually, and the mayor were the strongest advocates who were for that to come. The truth is that they probably didn't build the best contracts for our city and probably created a little bit more of a, let's say, a powerful position for the 49ers. But truly, since they came, I think we saw 2 years of good economy with them. I think 1 or 2 years. In 1 year or 2 years, they brought somewhere between $5 and $7 million per year. But since 2017, I believe, or late 2016, it has become a fight with our city leadership. What is really, I don't have proof for this, okay, but I'm telling you my gut instinct when you kind of put the dots together. The fight with them is no longer objective, it's personal, between the mayor and the 49ers. And that fight is really having very negative impacts on our society. One, it's created a great amount of divide in conversation and friendships. Two, it's taken a significant amount of revenue stream away from our city. And imagine if we had that revenue stream right now in COVID, how much more money we would have had in the reserves to help the residents right now. So we have to understand all these things connect the dots together, right? One thing is not an isolation, it has an impact on everything else. Now, I personally believe now this is called a deflection device. So if you were to look where the position of, if I was to show you, if you were to take a sheet and say, this is, okay, this way, this is the 49ers, okay? The residents are on this side. But on this side, there's a new project coming, which has been approved by the council, 4 times the size of 49ers Stadium, okay? That has a 0 lease. No fees are required to be paid until they put a shovel in the ground. So right now they're going after the 49ers for rent, which they should. We need to get it paid. There's no question of it. But the way they've done it is the problem. They've made it into an ego issue versus doing the right thing to find a win-win to solve the problem. But I believe that the real reason is now, besides the ego and personal agendas, is that they've given related company a free lease for more than 250 acres of land to build a future entertainment district on, and they're not taking a dime for it. So they're made a rental agreement, if you want to call it a lease agreement, and other concessions they've given that developer. Nobody wants to talk about those. Why? Because that sheds a light on the truth, what's behind of this misdirection to keep talking about the 49ers when really we have a bigger fish to be talking about. But we're not, because they don't know. And so the first thing we have to do is sit down with 49ers and say, guys, look, you need to pay the city. We're in a bad shape. Whether you agree or not, look, we need to do the right thing for the public. But more important than that is if you don't make money, we don't make money. But guess what? If you don't let us, get our demands met, you can't get started to make money either. You see? So again, not rocket science. If they don't go to business, we don't get money. If we don't allow them to go to business because they don't meet our demands, they don't get money. So we need to find that win-win and solve that problem right away.
No, thank you very much, Herbie. Appreciate it. So before we request you for the closing statement, I'll request Jaspreet if she has something in mind.
Yeah, thanks, Rabir. I really appreciate all the details and transparency through all the hot topics that everyone's trying to figure out what the answer should be, or what your thoughts at least. So I think COVID question you can't miss. I mean, as you mentioned prior to this, was that it is not over yet. You know, a lot of us, the rippling effects are coming, right? So we all know that. What are your plans to contain it and make sure that the spread is contained and that the city is ready for it?
Okay, so in our city here in Santa Clara, the Santa Clara County, not the city, actually will decide what we can and cannot do. However, we as city officials, and whether I get elected or not, but Vaiguraka, I will, is that we need to ensure that we help our businesses find ways to effectively service their customers, because that's our way of allowing them to keep the economy going, but also prevent further cases from shutting down the economy. And that is something I think that is our responsibility, to partner with the chamber, partner with this, with the medical specialists, and really create I just realized this. I think I might as well announce it. I think we need a COVID task force for our city to come up with ways to ensure that we work together with the school system, with the small businesses and public officials. But we do know that the county will control what we can and cannot do. But if we can be a good example, then it might help others consider doing the same thing. Our church here, the North Valley Baptist Church, was fined $100,000, okay, and is down the street from my place because they were holding services inside. For them, that was more critical. I don't think that was the best thing to do for them, to keep it inside. I said, Gurdwaras are doing it outside. Maybe we should help them figure out ways to do it outside as well. So now they're doing it as like, you know how you go to drive-in movie theater? They're doing drive-in service. So everybody comes in a parking lot like you're looking at the same screen, but from their cars. So it's working out well for them, but we need to find creative solutions like this, because if we don't, we will be shut down again. There's no question about it. And this isn't a political issue that everybody's making. Half my neighbors who we have been in pod, we built a pod behind our house in the sense all the kids in my neighborhood or this area play together. We eat together, we do things together. So we've been around each other. So most of them don't wear masks anymore, but that took a long time. So now we need to think about creative solutions to be preventative, but make sure the economy goes. And I come back to my beginning point. It cannot be about individuals. It has to be about collaboration for the common outcome, which is why, if you can see here, it says a brighter future, we, not me, because it can never be about me. It has to be about the we.
Lovely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I think we've run out of time. I'd love to hear in your other interviews, maybe talk a little bit about kids going back to school and the education system, because it's all connected. You know, the quicker we find jobs and put parents back at workforce, the quicker I think the kids and the education system can be supported. So thank you a lot. I appreciate it.
Very nice talking to you.
Same here.
Yeah, no, thank you. So before we end, will you please share the closing statement, why the voters should vote for you on November 3rd?
Sure. I think there's a new reality that we all live in, not to mention the current state of affairs in my city. We definitely need more collaborative, innovative, qualified, and very important analytical leaders who are willing to look for outcomes that serve everyone. And I believe that my background in technology, being a small business owner, an entrepreneur, love for the community of years of experience in many different groups, has enabled me to have those bridges of friendships and collaboration, and the mindset to work together with my council members and the public to really take us to a brighter and a sustainable future. That's very important, so everybody can have a livable and enjoyable city, and they can thrive in Santa Clara.
No, thank you very much, Herbie. Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you so much, and we wish you a good luck. And
Thank you
for admiring and encouraging all of the people in the Bay Area, especially in Santa Clara, seeing a woman coming for the forefront to run. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.